Hello, welcome to ISE Show TV. My name is Paul Milligan. Welcome to the latest in a series of panel discussions we're having at ISE 2020 in Amsterdam. Many thanks for joining us. Today's topic is looking at consolidation in the AV market. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I'm joined by two members of the PSNI, so thanks to Hayley for arranging this for us. At the end is Jeff Irvin from Integrators Spinitar, and next to me is George Punnoose from Integrators Resurgent. So welcome, gents.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Consolidation, is it a good thing or a bad thing, Jeff? We've seen a lot of it recently in distribution end, but also the big deal recently in the integrator end as well.
Yeah, last week was a very busy week in our industry. I mean, with VCA being acquired by Yorktel and the AVI SPL, Whitlock connection, and Diversified buying Sensory. I mean, but absolutely, I think it's wonderful. I think it's great because it shows the interest in our industry, that people are interested in investing in our industry, and so I think it's absolutely great, and I think our industry is ripe for consolidation because it's largely a fragmented business with a lot of mom and pop kind of companies out there. So it's very appropriate and makes a lot of sense.
Sure. George, how do you view the recent distribution and the integrator level?
Right.
How do you?
I think it also varies depending upon the markets.
Yeah.
Now, typically, I am part of the Indian market subcontinent.
Yeah.
So what we see is there is a level of maturity that the market has to achieve. So if you look at the distribution side of business for AV products, we do see a lot of pop and mom kind of stores there.
Yeah.
Companies which do a business of maybe typically about 3 to 5 million, and then you have certain companies which do up to about say 10 million. Now the key for this business to succeed is naturally when we're looking at distribution is a reach, because that's the way the business functions.
Yeah.
Second is in terms of the financial stability of each of these organizations. But I think what I'm looking at is, I think over the period of the next 5 years, there should be a consolidation in the Indian market at least. Most of the smaller companies would be taken over by the larger companies for the simple reason, I think there's so much of a competition which is actually coming in today. And every manufacturer wants to ensure that the product reaches the client first.
Yeah.
And they would want the distribution to be managed by companies which are professionally managed, have a structure around their business, and we also see the industry basically moving towards a vertical specific. And the distribution network is also moving in the same lines. So I think in the long run, consolidation is something that can't be done away with.
Yeah.
It's good for the end customer, it's good for the manufacturer, it's good for the system integrator, but there are certain pros and cons which need to be weighed. But overall, I feel, yes, that's the way it's going to be.
Sure. Jeff, there isn't a level of fear there that you felt talking to people since the AVI SPL Whitlock deal was announced that this could be a sort of Goliath that crushes everything in its path? There's no worry from the other guys in the market that this could maybe be too big?
No. I think the interesting thing about that is, and I think the important thing with any of the M&A activity is that you always want 1 + 1 to equal 3. And kind of news at 10 whether or not that will be a 1 + 1 = 3, or is it a 1 + 1 = 1 or 1.5. So time will tell, but seriously, what I want it to be successful, because if our industry is successful and growing and people are investing, that's good for all of us. So okay. I want it to be all the best for them, and because it's good for the industry.
Sure. I mean, it sounds similar to when we talk about people like Microsoft or Google coming into the AV sector. There's kind of an element of fear. It's like they're so big they could easily consume us all, sort of. But the other side of that is kind of what you're saying. It's like, well, the fact that these guys are showing interest in our market shows that it's a market to be interested in, and actually that's a positive.
Well, and I guess the downside is the big get bigger. To be a small to middle market size integrator today will be harder and harder and harder to compete from a price standpoint, because discount schedules look maybe vastly different from one another. Also, bigger companies have the ability to be able to reinvest in their business and to offer other value-added services that maybe smaller integrators cannot. So it'll keep me anxious. It'll keep me interested and engaged and focused, and because the competition's going to get bigger, and so we as an organization have to either scale ourselves or pick some verticals and some spots that we can own, and we can be more boutique, if you will. So either be boutique and be focused, or scale with the rest of them, but don't get caught in between.
Sure. I mean, are we seeing more consolidation because the market is becoming more global, do you think? I mean, you're members of a global organization, and that's growing. There are other ones. Is this just a sign of that, do you think, George?
See, globalization does play a great important role, because one, with globalization, what happens is that's a benefit to the client.
Yeah.
He gets the product, whatever is launched anywhere.
Yeah.
So the speed to market is the greatest advantage of going in for distribution. The second thing is, I think Jeff touched about the value-added distribution. What the partners or the system integrator or a reseller looks at is not purely getting a product on time, but what is the other values that the distributor is able to provide along with the product. So the terminology of distribution today is slowly moving to a value-added distributor. So like Jeff also mentioned, if you don't move with the times, are the ones that do not change are going to be left behind. Yeah. So it's very critical for the distributors also to change with times, provide more and more services. That's where they go back to the manufacturer or the vendor, not only for the products, but also asking for more services.
Yeah.
So again, a very good point from the manufacturer's point of view, for the distributor and for the client, as well as the system integrator.
Sure. Jeff, do you think this is a reaction to the market becoming a global one, that we're seeing this more M&A activity?
You know, and with PSNI, I think that was one of the things that was interesting. When we joined years ago, it was really all about the networking and the benchmarking and really becoming a better business. But now it's really become the ability to be able to deploy globally for my customer. Yeah. And it's interesting, customers are expecting, even though we're a Southwestern United States integrator and a more of a regional focus, we have enterprise customers that are wanting us to deploy all over the world, and now we have the ability to do that. And I guess my surprise is the demand for global deployment now is greater than ever before, and it's the amount of work in between integrators, from integrator to integrator, amongst the 80 some affiliates. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's shocking.
But I guess to grow your business, you've got to go after those bigger contracts, and invariably they're going to be global rollouts.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. And
you're seeing that in India as well, yeah?
India as well, because we see a lot of companies from US coming and setting up India as an IT hub. And we see companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Intel, you name it, and they've got multiple campus facilities in India.
Yeah.
So that actually, again, like we spoke earlier, it calls for kind of providing a kind of a project management or a design or a support after sales, etc., at the highest levels. And I think that's where PSNI also plays a great important role to ensure that the bar is actually raised for the members. The members are able to kind of provide a quality work, and the client is assured. I mean, if we were to go with a PSNI affiliate in a particular country, he's assured of the performance. So there are certain checklists that we ensure that we go through.
Sure.
And we also ensure that the competency of the company, the members, are of the highest level.
I mean, do you feel, it's crazy really, because it's such a big country, but do you feel like India maybe is seen as an untapped market by some, or the potential there is so much greater than maybe, say, Northern Europe or Northern America and stuff? Do you feel that there's going to be more M&A activity and buying and selling of stuff because everyone's trying to get into that market? Like, if that's what it feels like.
India is a growing market. I think during one of the sessions of AVIXA, we were told that China and India are two countries where I think are going to show much higher growth rate. So naturally, there is a lot of activity happening. There's a lot of government funding on the infrastructure. We have concepts like the smart city concepts or a digital India concepts, which actually calls for ensuring that there's a lot of energy management, there's a traffic management, water management. You talk about digital signage, unified communications. So what is happening is, I think there is a lot of awareness that is being created. There's a lot of government fund that is coming in, which is good for businesses like ours, because you're purely not dependent on the B2B enterprise sector, but We also get the projects coming in from the government for new airports coming up. We have almost about 100 airports which are going to be coming up in the next 1 or 2 years. So that's a huge opportunity, the power sector. Yeah. So what happens is I think globalization has played a great important role there, helps everybody in the chain. Yeah. So I think that's a huge benefit.
I mean, it's something you both mentioned earlier on. And we've covered it in the magazine before. We saw it acutely in the UK actually, that M&A activities really ramped up in the last 5 years because a lot of these companies were set up by an individual in the 60s or 70s or 80s, and they're getting to a certain age now where they're like, well, I don't want to work 14-hour days anymore, my business is quite successful, and they are either selling up, or if the family doesn't want to carry on the company, they're kind of selling up and stuff. Are we seeing a lot of that, or is it just a case of, you mentioned earlier, Jeff, the market's just getting mature and there is money to be made and other people are interested in this sector? Are you seeing that the age thing as an issue, or?
Well, I think both things are driving it, right? I think that, again, as I said earlier, it's a very fragmented industry that was ripe for consolidation. The economy is very healthy now, and so businesses are growing and doing well. I think private equity is seeing that there's a market called AV. I mean, years ago, nobody knew what AV was. There really wasn't even an identified industry. Now we're known. Now we're not a nice to have, but we're literally a gotta have. And then I think also too, the baby boomers are coming of age, right? And people that are my age or maybe a little bit older are interested in taking some of the money off the table and maybe slipping into retirement. So it's all these stars are aligned right now, and that's why we're seeing the activity that we're seeing.
See, I just wanted to add to what Jeff said. See, the other kind of thing that we see in the AV industry is the lines between AV and IT have kind of blurred. I mean, it's kind of almost become one. So what we are seeing here is it's not pure only the AV companies, but today we are seeing a lot of IT companies, large IT companies wanting to get into the AV. So that's a totally different scenario. Now here we could see maybe going forward some kind of a mergers taking place. Maybe the larger company wanting to acquire the smaller companies so that the expertise comes in. Because at the end of the day, the relationship is sitting with the IT companies, with the IT heads. So what they feel is this is something which naturally fits into the complete portfolio. So I think in the next 3-4 years will be very crucial and critical, where we could see a lot of merger and acquisitions happening.
Wow, fantastic. That's a nice positive way to wrap up. Jeff, George, many thanks for your time. It's a really interesting session there. I think M&A activity is only going to continue, so this is one that I think we're all going to have to watch very keenly. Many thanks for joining us for this latest session. There's plenty more to choose from on our various video channels, and please tuck into some of those. And many thanks for joining us for this one. Bye-bye.